Today's episode is sponsored by Some Edibles CBD-infused products. That's SUM Edibles and can be found at someedibles.com. They have a variety of yummy treats, including
vegan organic gummies,
brown buttered chocolate chip cookies,
and marshmallow cereal bars, just to name a few.
For fans of the podcast, you can use the promo code WIFE, that's WIFE, to receive 10% off your order.
Again, promo code WIFE for 10% off your order.
So, head to someedibles.com today. Welcome to Drunken Housewife Reviews. I'm Sarah, the Drunken Housewife.
And her host husband, Ian, who tries to keep her in line.
Which is a full-time job. We are here with producer, author, James Bond expert, Steve Rubin.
Don't forget Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, yeah. You've written how many books now?
9. I've done variations of the Bond book. I've done 4 editions of the encyclopedia and 2 editions of the behind the scenes history. So the bulk of my work is done Bond, but I cross genres. I did the Twilight Zone encyclopedia. My first book was called Combat Films, American Realism, 1945 to 1970. That sold about 430 copies. So I needed to find something that would be more interesting to the masses. And James Bond pointed the way.
Well, there you go. There you go. So I think probably the number one question all James Bond fans are going to want to know, who do you think should be the next James Bond now that Daniel Craig has stepped down? Who's your number one candidate or your top 3?
Well, it's interesting. Henry Cavill, who's played Superman.
Oh, I didn't even think of him.
Yeah, he's kind of a safe choice. I think he has the panache, the physicality, the appeal to both sexes. I think would work.
Yeah, I get the appeal.
But yeah. You know, it's funny. Daniel had virtually no reputation when he became Bond. He had done some films. He wasn't unknown, but he had that mysterious quality. And I've always maintained that part of the reason that Sean Connery works so well, and then of course Daniel, is we didn't know too much about them. So the idea of them playing a secret agent made sense. Roger Moore was a whole different animal. Roger Moore was well known from The Saint and all these other things. He was ready to catapult the series into the 1970s because of his reputation, and they needed to reboot because Bond was slowing down, and he did that. Roger Moore's films were enormously successful. So I'm kind of thinking that the new Bond should be someone somewhat unknown, like Daniel. So I'm not 100% sure beyond Henry. I mean, there's talk of Sam Heughan, who's on the series Outlander,
Yes.
Okay.
Who could also be an interesting Bond. He certainly is good looking enough to be Bond.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the female audience is very important, as we know.
Yes.
I don't know what you mean. I watch it for the plot and the action only.
And let's see who else is being considered. I always forget his last name or his full name. The guy who plays Loki in the Thor series.
Tom Hiddleston.
Right, Hiddleston.
Yeah.
He's popular. An interesting, different kind of approach, but I don't know if he can carry a series like Bond. I think he's a great actor. There's a TV series that I discovered about 2 years ago. It's a British TV series called Strike Back. I don't know if you guys know it.
I've kind of heard of it, but I've never seen it.
The 2 guys on that series, one of whom wouldn't qualify because he's American, but there's an Australian actor on the show. I think his name is Sullivan Stapleton, and he's terrific. He's very Bondian. So there's probably somebody like that out there. But there's no reason to fear Bond will return.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. When Daniel Craig decided to step down, which I totally understand. I mean, action is hard on your body, and I think he's being held together with duct tape and super glue and all sorts of stuff right now. I know people were like, oh, well, then they're gonna, just stop Bond. And I'm like, it's a moneymaker.
The day that Americans no longer have to pay taxes is the day they stop Bond.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah, I agree. Interesting little side note for this interview in particular. You are the third person that we've interviewed this week that James Bond has come up. We've interviewed, we interviewed two actors, Travis Dunn and Einar Haraldson.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them would love to even just be like the guy that the villain shoots in one scene of a Bond movie. So I'm pretty sure there are tons of actors out there that are like, let me be like the bad guy's henchman or something like that. Is that, I mean, would you be interested if they called you up and they're like, hey, we want you to be in like background in the scene? Would you be like, what day, what time, what location?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the dream job for me, since I have been screenwriting now for 10 years,
yes,
would be to write a Bond. Although the chances of that are about the same as Bond disappearing. I have a kind of, what would you call it, a rather tempestuous relationship with the Bond people. I've kind of always been a maverick. When I first started this process back in 1977, I went to Albert R. Broccoli, the godfather of Bond, and I asked for an interview, and I had a terrific interview, and we got along really well. And I went over he gave me the introduction to his stepson, Michael G. Wilson, and I went over to London that summer, and they opened all their filing cabinets to me as a researcher.
Oh, wow.
It was like, it was just they gave me access to all the call sheets for the first 10 Bond movies. So when I tell you on Saturday, May 1st, they shot the Goldfinger laser beam sequence, I know exactly when it was shot because I have the call sheet sitting in front of me. So all of that information was made available to me. And so I had a great relationship. Unfortunately, it didn't continue. It was kind of unfortunate. It was a series of just misunderstandings, and I wanted to kind of show off a little bit, which is always a bad idea. And I did these interviews with Richard Maybaum, the screenwriter, Peter Hunt, the editor, Terrence Young, the director. And I came back to California, and I thought I'd share the interviews with Cubby Broccoli, Albert Broccoli.
Okay.
And he didn't like what they were saying.
Oh.
And I got a phone call a week later saying, Steve, we're no longer cooperating with you.
Oh,
but
my gosh.
That wasn't horrible. What was really horrible, I was writing for a magazine in Chicago at that time called Cine Fantastique, one of the great science fiction film magazines. And my editor decided that he would do an ad for my book, because my book was finished when this is later. And he said, who is Cubby Broccoli and why did he want this book stopped? And I had no idea they were doing that ad. There was no way I would have ever done anything like that.
Yeah.
And Michael Wilson was so furious with me for putting that ad in because he thought I did it. So I kind of sank like the Titanic. So ever since then, 40 years later, plus 40 years, I have been the maverick. I do my Bond books kind of on my own. So, and now that Barbara Broccoli is running it, I don't know Barbara at all, but she knows my books. She knows that I'm a fan. It's just that I don't have a lot of personal relationship with them.
Gotcha.
Okay. Wow.
And in Hollywood, if things go sour, it's hard to get them unsoured. It can take centuries.
It's like trying to climb out of quicksand, and so it keeps pushing back in.
Right. Exactly.
I can only. Well,
but I've had fun. It's kind of the Bond world has inspired my whole world, and as a writer, I not that I've been writing spy fiction. I'm actually focusing these days on comedy writing. I'm partnered with two gentlemen. in live action comedy, I'm working with a writer named Billy Reback, who was one of the original writer producers on Home Improvement, the Tim Allen show.
Okay.
And he wrote for a lot of the Disney Channel shows. And Billy and I have just gone crazy writing comedy features, spec features, and TV pilots, which we're out there every day selling. And then I also write with David Lee Miller. We wrote a children's picture book that came out 2 years ago called The Cat Who Lived with Anne Frank.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because you are also associated with the project Silent Night with Linda Hamilton. So did that kind of inspire the children's book, or were they kind of a simultaneous thing? Or
they were separate.
They were separate.
I went to work. See, I've made my most of my income over the years up until the early 2000s was as a film publicist. I would work on features and television shows, and I went to work for Showtime in '92, and they started producing almost a film a week over there. It was almost like a train station of movies coming through every so often. So I was able to sell my first movie because I knew the new head of programming was a baseball fan. So my first movie was actually called Bleacher Bums.
Yes.
Okay.
And that had some names with it because it was Wayne Knight and
Peter Riegert, Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond, Charles Durning. And for the people who don't know Bleacher Bums, it's a classic baseball play about the fans who followed Chicago Cubs during their lean years, which was most of their history.
My dad was one of those lean year fans. He actually my mom was a bailiff in the court system here in Boone County for years, and my dad got called up for jury duty, and he was like, there's not a prayer that I'm ever going to do it. And the attorneys were like, there's not a prayer. And so they were just asking him like all sorts of questions that didn't matter. One of them was, are you a baseball fan? And my dad was like, no, I follow the Chicago Cubs. And we found it interesting that after he died, that's when they had their big winning year. And
wow. Well, he knows about it though. That was such an explosion of information and success that even people who are no longer with us knew about it.
We just had this mental image of him up there going, seriously, I had to die before this happened. Seriously. But we understand about the Chicago Cub lean years.
So I did Bleacher Bums, and then one of the heads of Showtime moved over to Hallmark, and I was able to sell a movie called Silent Night with Linda Hamilton, which was a true World War II story of a truce in the middle of the Ardennes forest in a cabin on Christmas Eve night, 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge. And Linda played a German woman who held a truce between American and German combat troops who showed up at her cabin at the same time. And they sang songs, they broke bread, and they left as friends in the morning. True story.
Because that I'm trying to think, it was in France that also happened, where they laid down arms and for Christmas.
Was the World War I story.
World War I. Okay.
Where they played soccer in the middle of no man's land.
Confusing my wars.
Right now.
In a perfect world, I wouldn't have any wars to confuse, but.
So I got chips on the table. I started producing. I got involved in some other projects. One film I'm very proud of, David Lee Miller, who I wrote the Cat Who Lived with Anne Frank book with, he conceived of a movie called My Suicide, which is a teen dramedy, which has an extraordinary cast. And we won the Berlin Film Festival in 2009 in our class, and 20 other Best Picture awards around the world. This movie, it's basically the story of a teen who announces in his fifth period video class that he's going to film his own suicide. Ooh. So it's a journey movie, finding out what's inside this kid's head, but all told from the kid's point of view. And it has a hopeful message. It's an anti-suicide movie. And young people, literally hundreds of young people who were on the edge, saw this movie and wrote us letters saying the movie brought them back. And it's still a very popular film on Netflix. I tell people, anybody who knows any young person who's going through that period, oh, there's a beautiful kitty behind you.
Yes, I don't know what it is about cats and Zoom, but he has to appear all the time. And at least he doesn't show his butt. He just comes in and says hello and then leaves.
But anyway, this movie has had a positive effect on suicide prevention in the country. We actually brought the concept to Edwin Schneidman when we first started out. And he is the father of modern suicide prevention. If you win a prize in suicide prevention, you win the Schneidman Prize.
Okay.
So he kind of vetted our storyline and encouraged us. And we just, the film was released briefly during the recession back in 09, 010. A little bit later, but it's really scored on Netflix. It's called My Suicide, and again, anybody who's at risk should watch this movie because it's a message that celebrates life and the importance of speaking out. Because you know that suicide is the silent killer. Nobody wants to talk about it. So that got me on the table. But the Cat Who Lived with Anne Frank was an entirely separate motivation. I have a little hobby. When I'm shaving, I play old classic movie soundtracks on my player.
Okay.
Not the music, the whole movie.
Okay.
So I'm listening to dialogue, and it actually informs me as a screenwriter because you listen to good dialogue, you begin to realize how to write. It was kind of my education. So one day I was listening to the soundtrack to the 1959 film, The Diary of Anne Frank, with Millie Perkins and Shelley Winters. She won the Oscar that year.
Yes.
And they're chasing this cat around the attic. And I realized that I'm thinking Mushi the cat, who is a real cat, by the way, and actually writes about Mushi in the diary. What did he think of all this craziness of these people who never go outside? They have to tiptoe in the morning because they don't want to, be discovered. So it kind of came through that we had this idea, and what's happened is the book came out in 2018. It's out there now. It's called The Cat Who Lived with Anne Frank from Penguin. But it's also inspired an animated feature. So David and I have written an animated feature version of the story. The book is about Anne's story from the cat's point of view.
Yes.
The movie takes Mushi out of the attic. He left the attic every day because he would go down the coal chute and do his thing.
Exactly.
And he joins the Dutch animal resistance. So the movie becomes a metaphor.
Oh,
interesting.
He's fighting the Nazis. The Nazis in our story are the German shepherds and Rottweilers that patrol the canal.
Oh,
interesting.
Wow.
Yes.
That's interesting. I like that concept.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's it's when out here in Hollywood, you're always trying to kind of do something a little bit differently so you can get something out there, because yes, there are 20 zombie movies a year, but if you do another zombie movie, you're just another one of the pack. So there's definitely nobody doing anything about Anne Frank's cat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. Because, it wasn't until I read about your book that I was like, oh yeah, because I think every teenage girl goes through that reading the Anne Frank diary phase. And
Sure.
I was one of those teenage girls, and I even tried to keep a diary, which mine was totally boring. But it wasn't until I read about your book that I was like, oh yeah, that's right, there was the cat. And so I think it's very interesting with the German shepherds as the Nazis.
We were inspired by The Lion King, because as you recall in The Lion King, the bad guys are the jackals.
Yes.
And they're, they even march like Nazi stormtroopers.
Oh, they get the Nazi march.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we were thinking that. And then, we went over to Amsterdam and we really researched this. It's interesting because, we're kind of, people go to the Anne Frank house and they take the tour. It's become an enormously popular tour. But we were looking at it from a different point of view. We were actually looking at it from the cat's point of view. So we took pictures of lower level parts of Amsterdam, and it's actually interesting. We found some extraordinary discoveries. For instance, the Amsterdam Zoo hid a lot of Jews. And
really?
They were hidden above the tiger cages, the animal cages, and there were these huge storerooms up there. And during the course of the war, and these people were never discovered. It was a huge success for keeping people safe. And so it becomes a major location in our movie,
That's very cool.
I did not know that. And my dad taught history for, 36 years. And I don't even know if he knew that. That in and of itself would be a very interesting story.
Oh yeah.
To tell.
Oh, yeah. And there's all sorts of interesting history. We approached the Anne Frank house to ask them if they had any information on Mushi. And they said, we have no information on Mushi, but no one has ever asked us about Mushi.
Yeah.
But something very telling, I'll tell you. Miep Gies, who was the Dutch woman who was part of the team in the warehouse that hid the Franks, when she went to Gestapo headquarters after everyone was captured and betrayed, and of course she couldn't free them. There was just no way it was going to happen. So she came back to the attic after it had been ransacked, and Anne's diary is all over the floor. It's sitting there because they threw it out thinking just papers. They were looking for valuables. And guess who's sitting on Anne's diary?
Oh, the cat.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So that was also very inspirational to us.
Yeah.
So this is one of the most important pieces that we've worked on. And just like my suicide approached suicide prevention from an unusual angle and has been very successful, we're approaching the teaching of fighting anti-Semitism and all this hate by approaching the story from a story that could relate to young people. Because as you know, people are not only forgetting the history, but they're also denying it.
Yes. Yeah.
And also what really bothers me is when we hear these stories of college students somewhere giving the Hitler salute, they think it's cool, and putting beer cans and swastika designs. It seems to me that we've forgotten that, excuse me, the Nazis were really the bad guys.
Yeah.
So, it's got to change. It's got to change. And education and history is what you do it with.
Exactly. I think my dad's favorite quote as a history teacher was, we have to learn from our history to avoid repeating our history.
What's really interesting about the film is that it sort of reminds me of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the comic book Mouse, Maus, Mouse.
Yes.
It's kind of reminiscent of that, where they're telling it in something that's accessible to a younger audience. Definitely.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Sometimes like I said, you've got to do it from an entirely different approach. You got to come at it, with something that's, people find unusual. And
definitely.
Very
definitely.
True.
Yeah. I do like that concept. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, we're out all over the world. Companies are kicking the tires all over the world. There's even a group in Ukraine right now. God, I hope everybody stays safe there, because at this moment we're wondering if there's going to be an invasion.
Yeah.
But there's an animation group there that's doing drawings as we speak. So we're starting to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fingers
Cool.
crossed on that, because I that would definitely be one that I would want to see, because
But on a much lighter note,
lighter note,
Billy and I, Billy Reback and I have written a spoof of one of the great courtroom dramas of all time. It's the original, as you'll remember, it is called 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
And Henry Fonda, and we've written 12 Anxious Men. And it's
interesting.
It's the most dysfunctional jury you've ever seen in your life.
Okay.
And it's how they're trying this case. So, it's funny, as screenwriters in Hollywood, you basically try to win the lottery every time you write something, because it's like, that's how difficult it is to sell something. So someone told us that write something small, that you just go shoot it, or at least shoot it for less money than everybody else is spending. So what better movie to write is that one takes place in one room.
Yeah.
So, the jury room. And so we're plotting that now. We're trying to put our cast together, and we may actually just raise a little bit money and just go shoot this, because it's a really funny story. And again, from a different point of view, a different angle.
Yeah, that would definitely.
Very
I
cool.
know.
It reminds me of Amy Schumer's sketch that she did on that, where they were trying to decide whether or not she was, quote, hot enough to be on TV. And they were having that whole kind of argument. It was very funny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, keep going.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I've totally lost my train of thought now. It's the
12
tequila.
Angry Men.
It's the tequila. It happens. Yeah.
It's funny because neither, I'm not a teetotaler. I actually will have a drink occasionally. Billy doesn't drink at all. So we're very sober. But one thing we have to do when we write is we have to eat. So we do most of our writing in restaurants. We have a nice lunch, and then we go to town and we crank it. We write 5-6 pages a day. So we can write a full-length screenplay in a little under a month.
It's like, give me to an Italian restaurant and I can give you a scene, I swear.
It's funny because David, who I write the animation stuff with, he doesn't like any food anywhere near the typewriter or the computer. So I'm kind of, I have to eat before I get over to his house. And you'll laugh because when I started writing the Anne Frank project with David, I was allergic to cats. And he has 4 cats.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So over the course of a year, I got rid of my allergy.
Really?
It's amazing. I can put a cat on my nose and I won't even feel anything. Whereas in the past, I could walk in a room and start sneezing the minute I knew a cat was there. So it is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if it was just your body was just so bombarded with it that finally it's like, okay, we're done with this. Let's move on to something else. Now you'll probably develop an allergy to, I don't know, peanuts or something, and then there goes your eating.
No, I'm allergic to stupidity.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
I have that similar allergy, and it's not getting any better. It seems to be getting worse. But I have discovered tequila does help with the allergy because it makes me not care. So try tequila, I guess. I don't know.
You are a vision. It's
like interesting theory, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
just
medicinal purposes.
Keep rolling. We're just let it roll off. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's really.
By the way, who are these people behind you on the wall here?
Well,
let's see. This is Danny Trejo.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Ken Forey from which
Dawn of the Dead.
I get them all confused, and that's horrible. And then Derek Mears and Dee Snider
from Twisted Sister.
Yeah, in our awkward prom photo. I volunteer for a convention, horror movie convention, and
Days of the Dead.
That's where.
Give them a shout out.
Well,
what city are you guys based in?
We live in Lebanon,
which is just north of Indianapolis.
Just like half an hour away from Indy, and that's.
My wife's cousins all live in Indianapolis. So.
Okay,
we've been there several times.
And if they like pro wrestling, I do another one that's Squared Circle Expo. I just don't have my wrestling. I haven't quite gathered all the wrestling people yet. They had me work with Britt Baker. Do you know who she is?
No. Rick Baker is a guy.
Britt.
Oh,
Baker.
Britt Baker. No, I don't know who that is. Oh,
she's actually Britt Baker DDS. She's actually a dentist and a pro wrestler, and she's absolutely gorgeous. And they had me working with her, and I'm sitting there going, I feel like a troll sitting next to this gorgeous woman. Just ignore me and look at the gorgeous woman over here. So. But yeah, I found her very, very interesting. So, but yeah, these are all.
Have you heard of a wrestler named Eva Marie? Does that ring a bell?
No, I don't.
Natalie Eva Marie. No. The reason I mention it is I still do some PR consulting, and she's in a new action movie.
Okay.
Called Phoenix, which you'll be hearing about soon. But it's a female action adventure hero type movie. But Yeah, no, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
It's weird because I know nothing about wrestling, absolutely nothing, but I've worked with the people that run that convention and other conventions, and I love them so much that they were like, hey, we need volunteers. I'm like, sure. I don't know anything about wrestling, but let's go. Yeah. So but yeah,
I've been out to the horror convention they have in Burbank every so often, and I've seen what can be done in the world of horror. It is quite amazing what can be done these days. One of my best friends is William Malone, and William Malone is a fine director. He did the remake of House on Haunted Hill back in '98.
yes,
And
yes.
he did films like Parasomnia
Mhm.
and Creature, and he did two of the best episodes of Tales from the Crypt. He's a very interesting director. His other claim to fame is he was kind of collecting memorabilia from his favorite movie and one of my favorites, Forbidden Planet from 1956.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And when the movie museum closed in Anaheim, he bought Robbie the Robot, the original Robbie.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to come see Robbie.
Wow.
I need to just pose next to him and then I'll leave.
Well, when
I swear.
when I was writing for Cinefantastic, everybody said if you're doing a retrospective article on Forbidden Planet, which is what I was doing, you got to go see Bill Malone. So I walk into Bill's den, and there's Robbie. And
wow.
oh my God, what an oh my God moment. And we became really close after that. And I remember I also did a retrospective article on the original movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951.
Yes.
And I was in New York promoting the sequel, the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Donald Sutherland, Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
And I'm talking to this guy. He says, we're talking about my retrospective on The Day the Earth Stood Still. Says, oh yeah, Gort. Yeah, he's in my father's garage. I said, what? And it turned out I was talking to the son of Larry Harmon, who played Bozo the Clown.
Yes.
And when I got back to California, Bill and I went up to Bel Air and to this to look at the garage. And there in the back of the garage was the 9-foot fiberglass statue of Gort that sits in front of the saucer in that movie.
Yes.
And Bill bought it from this guy, Larry. And it's so funny. I guess, what happens with movie props, TV shows will sometimes buy them because they're about to be junked. So Larry must have bought Gort. He put little wings on his shoulder to make him less threatening. It's kind of funny. Well, Bill removed those, of course. And it's fun. It's fun. I wish I had room for props in my house. Because over the years, I've really been told about things. For instance, I don't know, do you remember a movie from the 50s called Them?
Yes.
Giant ants, New Mexico.
Yes.
Well, I was informed by the Warner Brothers people that the last surviving ant was about to be destroyed on the Warner Brothers lot.
Oh my gosh.
And that would have been a great thing to find, but unfortunately I would have had no room for it. It's hard to put a 9-foot ant in a 2-bedroom apartment.
I know, because every once in a while I'll see some movie memorabilia come up that I'm like, I so want that, but it's like, where am I going to put it?
Exactly.
I mean, we have like what 1,500 square feet, so unless we're going to hang ourselves on a hook on a wall,
right,
we don't have room for it. But you also wrote a Twilight Zone book.
I did. What happened was, screenwriting can be so frustrating that you literally spend decades not selling anything. And I'd been a while since I'd been writing, doing books. I said, I got to get back out there, and get some excitement going in the writing field, actually see something produced. So I had been, I've always been a fan of the Twilight Zone, and I'm a big fan of Mark Sakri's book, The Twilight Zone Companion, which is kind of the Bible for Twilight Zone fans. But I wanted to approach it from the encyclopedia point of view, because I really wanted to devote a lot of time to the performers who were in the Twilight Zone, most of which aren't with us anymore. And so I wrote over 500 bios of people who were in Twilight Zones. And
wow.
also I met Carol Serling, who is Rod's widow, and she opened the filing cabinets like the Broccolis did back in the 70s for me. So I got access to contracts. I can actually tell you what people got paid in those days, which is so minuscule.
Yeah.
I mean, top of show on the Twilight Zone for a lead actor, $5,000. Which back in 1959, 1960,
that was a lot of money.
That was a lot of money, but it seems like a pittance today. And I just kind of, I just had fun. Writing an encyclopedia is a lot of fun because you can constantly make changes without having to retype the whole manuscript because of a computer. It would be impossible to write an encyclopedia without a computer because you'd have to, every time you came up with a new fact, you'd have to retype the manuscript to move things around. With a computer, it's really, really simple. And Carol gave me over 170 photos of the series. So, you know, the other thing about writing any type of encyclopedia, and this goes for my James Bond encyclopedia, is you've got to find the illustrations. You know, you've got to find the photographs.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Have you been able to get like storyboards or anything like that? Or
no, unfortunately. And even here's another sad fact. Rod Serling had some kind of physical problem with his fingers. So he stopped typing in the 50s and he started dictating his teleplays into a dictaphone machine. And so all those dictaphone tapes where he's talking into telling you the Twilight Zone episodes, they reused them over and over again. And so all of that stuff was gone. It was very sad. But I did track down a lot of people who were still alive who were with the series. And I think the book turned out really, really fun. It turned out really fun, and I'm very proud of it. And but I had some interesting things happen to me, almost in Twilight Zone moments. For instance, when you're writing about the Twilight Zone, what would be very helpful is to know Rod's motivation and where he got his inspirations from. And I asked Carol that one day, and she said, "Well, you should take a look at this book." And it was a compilation of his live television shows from the 50s before he wrote The Zone, but it's a long preface talking about what motivates him and how excited he is about writing. So she hands me this book, Rod's personal copy of his book. And I take it home. I put it on my desk. I can't wait to dive into it. I think I had dinner that night, so I came back from dinner, and it vanished.
What?
Well, first of all, I felt horrible because Carol had loaned me Rod's personal copy.
Your heart just,
I spent 3 days looking for that book. And my office isn't exactly the size of a hangar. It's about 10 by 10. And to this day, I don't know what happened to it. It literally disappeared into thin air.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a scene from like a horror movie where things just disappear. Now, here's another weird story. I go to a Twilight Zone symposium in Binghamton, New York. They have them occasionally where they celebrate the Twilight Zone. Binghamton is where Rod grew up, and that's where he grew up in his family house there. So during a break in the convention, Nick Parisi, who's another Twilight Zone author, says we should go take a look at Rod Serling's house. I said, well, that'd be so cool. This is the place where he grew up. So we're standing in front of the house looking at it. And I guess the owner comes out and offers to take a photograph of us, which is great. So we have this nice photo of Nick and I sitting on the porch in front of the Twilight Zone house. I look at the photo later, it's in black and white. And that doesn't make any sense because, as you know, if you take a photo on an iPhone, to make a black and white photo, you actually have to
push buttons and stuff.
Buttons. Well, nobody punched any buttons. The photos came out in black and white.
So you're here in the Twilight Zone. Exactly. I think that is one of those universal things, though. When something strange happens, somebody somewhere is going to do the do 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 do. It's just.
By the way, did you know that theme? That theme was not that was not originally conceived of for the Twilight Zone. Basically, the head of music for CBS would go to Europe every year to acquire cheap music because they didn't want to spend money on composers. So he went to France, and the Twilight Zone theme, which of course is maybe the most iconic theme ever, is a compilation of two pieces from a French composer that had nothing to do with each other, and they put them together, and that became the Twilight Zone theme, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah,
Oh my
that
gosh.
is interesting.
That is good.
So, all right,
Because,
so I have to
yeah.
ask, do you guys have favorite episodes?
I am like torn.
Oh, Talking Tina. Talking
Yeah.
Tina freaked me out because when I first saw it, I was like seven.
and I'm going to kill you.
It makes
I
you
was-
look at your dolls.
I was like 7 years old when I
Yeah.
first saw that. I'm like, it freaked me out. And then I
You
saw
know,
the
talk
movie
about
Magic
freaking
and
out.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about freaking out. I was 8 years old and I wandered into the living room one night and my parents were watching The Silence. And The
Yeah.
Silence is an episode where this motor mouth is challenged by this other club member to shut up for a year. So they put him in a glass booth in the basement of this club, private club, and he's not allowed to speak for a year, and he'll give him $500,000. Well, I was watching that. I said, the idea for an 8-year-old not talking for a year, I ran out of the room. I'm not watching. This is too freaky. So I didn't watch it. I didn't want to watch the Twilight Zone when it first came on the air. I said, this is too weird for me.
I know he works as a flight attendant. And so when he first got the job, the first thing that popped into my mind, and I'm sure, you know, the first time people fly, if they know anything about the Twilight Zone, is the William Shatner.
Oh yeah,
With the-
Shatner.
yeah. Yeah. with the-
Nightmare at 20,000 feet.
Yeah. So when he first became a flight attendant, you know, I was like, if somebody says there's something on the wing, just believe them. Just believe them. Just say, yes,
You know,
there is
that-
something
that-
on the wing. And maybe they'll calm down. I don't know. But
That episode was written by Richard Matheson, who was one of Rod's best writers. And as the story goes, Richard was on a plane looking out the window and he thought he saw somebody skiing off a cloud. And of course, he was hallucinating, but I guess that got the juices flowing and that came up with the wing thing. There's a funny story when they were making that episode. That episode was directed by Richard Donner, who went on to direct Superman and Lethal Weapon and all those great movies. But apparently he went for coffee and they filmed that the wing sequence on above a tank. Because as you recall, there's a lot of water pouring on the wing because it's a storm. So there was a big tank under the wing and they had those big aircraft wind machines blowing. And Nick Cravat was the actor who played the creature on the wing. And so Donner goes for coffee and he hears a scream from the set. And he comes racing back and then looking down like 12 feet down to the concrete bottom of that tank, William Shatner's lying face down on the concrete. And oh my God, he thinks his actor's dead. And then Shatner sits up and starts laughing. He pulled a prank on Donner.
Maybe one of those minutes like, come here, I need to slap you. Come here. I need to slap you.
Those movie people, they just have no sense of decorum.
Yeah, I know.
Another one of my favorites is where the couple wakes up from a night of partying and find that they're in an alien's terrarium, basically, and it's a little kid's kind of terrarium.
Yeah, because you keep hearing the laughter.
Exactly. Yeah.
There is nothing creepier than little kid laughter for some reason.
You know who played the lead in that? Barry Nelson, who was the first actor to play James Bond.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
On television, 1954, Casino Royale.
It all
Most
comes
people
back.
didn't even know about that. Yeah, so that's all comes back. Exactly.
There you go.
It all
comes back to
circles
Bond.
back. Six degrees of James Bond. There's your next.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's your next idea. You're welcome.
My favorite episode is the one where Burgess Meredith plays the little bookish bank clerk who goes.
I was just going to say that's one of mine.
Time enough at last.
Yeah. There's another one where the guy flips the quarter and it like lands on in.
Yeah, he throws it in the newspaper boy's box and lands on its side. He can hear people hear their thoughts. Yeah, that's Dick York, who later went on to play Samantha Stevens' husband in Bewitched.
Yeah, that one I was like, man, what would I do with myself if I could hear everybody's thoughts?
You know what Rod Serling did for me, and I'm sure he did it for every writer who's written since, is basically opened your mind to let your imagination go. Don't put any limits on your imagination. And I think if you think about those there was 156 episodes, and he wrote 92 of them. And, he let his imagination completely go. And I think that, Rod grew up in the 30s, and he went to horror movies. He saw Frankenstein. He saw, excuse me, he saw King Kong. I think his mind was opened by that and all the science fiction magazines of the period. So he was really steeped in it. Most people don't realize that Rod Serling was a very traumatized World War II veteran as well. I mean, he was a paratrooper in the Philippines, and he saw real horrific combat. So he came back with what we call today PTSD, and he was doing some therapy in Chicago, and they told him that you've got to channel all this trauma you went through, and whether it's basket weaving or writing. And fortunately for us, he chose writing. And a very unique writer, a very unique man with a very strong moral compass.
Yeah.
Totally
Because I know special effects guru Tom Savini was a war photographer. And in Vietnam. And he said that's one thing that when he creates the special effects makeup, he's like, I know what this wound looks like in real life, and I need to make it, so it's just interesting where some people can just channel that traumatic experience into something creative, and almost probably therapeutic for, it's like, I've got it, I'm getting it out of my head.
And some of the best art is really created that way, of just taking those events and putting it into something positive, even though, I mean, it might look horrific, but it still has a positive effect.
It's getting it out of your head. And,
it's very true. Very true. Another of my favorites are the two, what we call the wistful nostalgia episodes. One is called Walking Distance, which is about the advertising executive who gets his car repaired and takes a walk back to his hometown, eventually goes through a warp, and now it's back to the 1930s, and he sees his own self playing on the carousel. That's Walking Distance. And then the companion episode is A Stop at Willoughby, about another advertising executive burnout case who takes the train every day, and it stops at that little town called Willoughby. It's one of my favorites. Rod, every year, Rod would go back to where he grew up, that area. We would visit Binghamton, and then I think he and Carol bought a house on the Finger Lakes in New York, and that was their summer retreat house. And he loved nostalgia. And the story goes that one of the inspirations for the Zone was, the very first episode of the Twilight Zone was called Where Is Everybody, with Errol Holliman. He wanders around that town and there's nobody around. And it was inspired by Rod. And he was, I believe he was on the CBS back lot, and he couldn't find his way out one day. He was wandering around. He finally saw a security guard at a kiosk. He ran up to him and says, "Can you tell me how to get out of this place?" And it was a mannequin. So that really freaked him out. And that's kind of what Where Is Everybody, which was the pilot episode of the Twilight Zone. The only episode, by the way, actually there's two, but it wasn't shot on the MGM lot. That was shot at Universal. And in fact, he wanders through that area of Universal on the tour, which later became where Marty McFly, goes back to the courthouse, that famous courthouse. Well, that's a very famous location at Universal. And the only other episode that wasn't shot on the MGM lot was the one they purchased. The one time in the whole run of the series for 5 years, they actually purchased the winner of the Cannes Film Festival best short film that year. It's called An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. It's a Civil War story, which was based on the Ambrose Bierce short story. That was, I believe, it was fifth season. That was not originated on the MGM lot. And of course, there were episodes that they filmed partially in the desert, because there are a number of desert episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I can't think of any. I think we're ready to wrap up. We've been talking to you about everything.
Now,
Well,
we
of
could-
I mean, I could
course,
talk to you
of
for like
course.
hours.
I could talk Twilight Zone episodes
Yeah.
all day long.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we
Yes.
just got through watching a bunch on New Year's. It's so funny because I own the Blu-rays now, so I can watch them at my leisure. And I always say to myself, I'm not going to watch it with commercials because it's so intrusive. But what happens is on New Year's Day, I'm watching football, and every time they go to a break, the commercial, I move over to the Twilight Zone, and then I move back to football. So Twilight Zone and football kind of worked for me during New Year's
There
Day.
you go.
I
There
totally,
you
I
go.
totally get that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think like anytime that we can catch when they're doing a marathon anywhere, we try to catch
Oh yeah, the
it.
sci-fi marathon.
Yeah, because
definitely.
9 times out of 10, then we'll catch an episode that we've never seen.
Well, even though it wasn't as good as Twilight Zone, and Rod was more of a hired gun, I wish they would do a Night Gallery, a marathon, because Night Gallery, even though it was inconsistent, there were some really good episodes, and it was such a creepy show. I thought it would be fun to see a marathon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, especially with the early 70s resurgence and the renaissance, if you will, of a film where different subjects are being able to be fleshed out, and them addressing some of those, and just had a different aesthetic to it, even though it's still cut from Rod Serling's imagination to a certain degree, but it just brought a whole new kind of weirdness to it. That was
and Hollywood's rebooting things every day.
Right.
Reboot
Hey,
that. Yeah.
Hey, I'm rebooting 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
Come on, work with us. Yeah, so I could seriously sit and talk to you for hours because
thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
I want to throw a plug in for my podcast if it's
do
cool.
it. Yes.
Plug away, my friend.
Plug away on anything.
Plug away. It's called Steve Rubin's Saturday Night at the Movies. I mean, there are a lot of Saturday Night at the Movies shows, but this is Steve Rubin's Saturday Night at the Movies. We kind of celebrate classic, cult, and current films. And I have unusual guests, just some very interesting people. One of the recent guests was Barry Taff, who's one of the foremost paranormal researchers in the world, and investigated over 500 haunted houses. And he was the inspiration for the movie The Entity in 1979.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool.
I am all things paranormal. So yeah, the second you said his name, I'm like, I got to see that one.
So if you want to
definitely.
talk paranormal, this is your lady.
Yeah,
definitely. She's all about that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So maybe you can tell me, Sarah, what happened to my Twilight Zone book.
I am betting $5, and you're gonna think it's strange. Do you have a drop ceiling or like ceiling tile anywhere in your house?
I have no ceiling tile. No, this is not like that, but
because it's going to be in like a weird, like in the ceiling or in the wall or like someplace where you're like, there's just no way in the world that it could get in there.
Well, if I do discover it, I'm calling you up and thanking you because
because trust me, it's somewhere really weird that there is no way that it could have gotten in there by human beings. And you're gonna when you finally you're gonna have to knock out a wall for some reason, and then somebody's gonna be like, hey, what's this? And you're gonna be like, I've been looking at for like ever
20 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So my podcast is currently on Spotify. We're going to branch out soon, but we're just starting. We're just in our 6th episode, but it's fun. I also do a classic film review every Saturday on my Facebook page, which is also called Steve Rubin's Saturday Night at the Movies. I have a page for the James Bond movie encyclopedia, and I have a page for the Twilight Zone encyclopedia. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram. Just look for Steve Rubin.
Yes, definitely. Send us links, and like on YouTube, we'll put the links down below. I think that's what everybody does, is the links are down below. Perfect. Definitely. You are truly a just fountain of information.
Well, I'm going to recommend that all my future hosts drink tequila while they're interviewing me, because this was really a good interview.
It's the only way to go. I have medicinal purposes to deal with your allergy to stupidity.
Well, not only that, but we're both like James Bond and Twilight Zone and all things movies and whatnot, geeks, fans, and we get passionate about it, and we just like I said, we can talk about Twilight Zones all day long.
Well, I think we need to have our distractions these days because the world has suddenly become the Twilight Zone.
It has.
Yes.
Yes.
Very weird.
I know. One popular thing I saw the other day was somebody was like, the phrase "avoid you like the plague." Well, obviously we didn't avoid it, so we need to throw that one out.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, if Rod Serling was alive today, we have no doubt he would be doing a COVID episode. And
he would do a COVID series.
Yeah, he would have.
Episodes. He would have a whole season.
Yeah.
He did an episode called The Masks. Remember that one?
Yes, exactly.
Remember the one about those people who have to wear their to get their inheritance, they've got to wear that mask.
Mm-hmm.
That was a creepy one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So definitely. That would be an interesting. What would he do with what's going on today? Interesting thoughts.
Definitely.
Interesting thoughts.
Yes. One of the things too I was wanting to talk about too is the George Takei episode that was banned, and then they finally brought it back.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that they didn't want to show for some reason.
I know the reason. Basically, in the course of for listeners who have not seen the episode, Neville Brand plays a U.S. Marine veteran who, is up in his attic. He has collected samurai swords and World War II memorabilia. And George Takei plays his gardener who comes up to see him one day, and they get into a discussion. And in the course of the story, they mentioned that there were Japanese Americans in Hawaii who gave away the position of Pearl Harbor so that the Japanese pilots would have their targets on track. And that is absolutely false. There's no evidence that any Japanese Americans were traitors during World War II.
Yes.
So they received a storm of protests from the Japanese American community. So that episode stayed out of circulation for years.
Okay. Educational moment there. The more you know. Swipe.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew that there was something within the Japanese American community that was the reason, but having never seen the episode,
right,
which was very ironic that he had to take that episode and get paid for that because he needed the work, and all the while he had been in a Japanese internment camp in America. So that was the weirdest irony of that. It's like a Twilight Zone
within a Twilight Zone.
Yeah. It was just really bizarre that he had to do that.
Yeah. So thank you. Because I've never seen the episode. I just knew that there was the uproar over it. So
but that makes total sense.
Yeah, it does make total sense. Because there was never any
conspiracy.
Yeah,
there's
no proof, no nothing.
In fact, J. Edgar Hoover, who wasn't exactly the most liberal guy in the world. He actually sent a missive, I believe, to the governor of California and maybe to the president, saying there was no evidence, or he had no sense that the Japanese Americans wouldn't be anything but loyal to the U.S. And yet there was a big land grab going on in California. As soon as those people had to get rid of their homes and everything, they were scooped up, particularly the farms. So there was a lot of anti-Asian prejudice at that time. Yeah. And they used the the war gave them the excuse to steal all that land. It was a big land grab, and just a terrible moment in American history.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Again, we need to learn from our history so we don't repeat it. Our history. Exactly. Well, this has been, we've been talking to you for like an hour. This has just been amazing.
We touched on a bunch of stuff.
Yes, definitely. And we would definitely have you back anytime.
I will keep you posted when we get these movies made or our next projects. I will definitely keep you.
Give us a call.
Stuff.
Whenever you want to come on, do a plug or just talk about, whatever, it's all good.
Or if you need a voice for your, if you need a voice for your Anne Frank animated movie.
You never know, Sarah.
Well, hey, we're both, our little plug, we're both actors and writers and stuff too. So we'd be happy to do any voiceover type stuff or whatever, cameos.
Where are your people?
If you need somebody to just get shot and, fall over, man,
how's your German accent?
You took German.
I
You should have a good one.
actually took German in high school, so I would have to work on getting my tongue back into it because it's been since high school back in so yeah, I would have to, but the good thing is my German teacher is still around, so I could always call her up and be like,
There
hey,
you go.
You can
There
brush
you
up.
go.
There you
Very
go.
cool.
give me a hand here. So yeah, so call me. But this has been Steve Rubin, master
you.
of all things James Bond, Twilight Zone. Just an amazing guy. We thank you for being on the show. We'll post links to your podcast down below so you guys can check it out. Definitely going to check out your paranormal episode. Definitely. So yeah, thank you so much for being on, and we'll have you back on anytime to plug anything.
Sure.
So
And,
yeah, just let us know.
And have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, have a great
Be
day.
safe, guys. Be well.
You too. Bye. Okay, so that was our interview with Steve Rubin. Like I said, if you want to know James Bond, he's your guy. Twilight Zone, he's your guy. Definitely, I want to check out the Cat That Lived with Anne Frank children's book. That sounds amazing.
Well, the animated film sounds.
The
like it's gonna
animated
be
film,
awesome.
I'm kind of excited about because that is a very interesting theory. Very
Oh,
interesting.
I'm also about original take
Very
on
interesting
everything.
viewpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
with
very
the
cool.
with the animals. So looking forward to that definitely. We'll have links to his podcast
Mhm, definitely.
down below for YouTube viewers. For people who are just listening to us, I guess you'll have to go, just Google Steve Rubin
Yeah, Google Steve and IMDb.
and IMDb.
Steve Rubin as well, and a lot of good information.
Yeah, definitely. So
And who's coming up? Who's coming up on the show soon?
our
did kind of
next
a,
interview is one that I'm just a little bit excited about because it is Larry Hankin.
That's right, Larry Hankin.
Larry Hankin, who, if you watched Friends back in the day, Mr. Heckles. He played
Yes.
Mr. Heckles on Friends, as well as
He's
he has had an amazing career, and I'm looking so forward to talking to, because he has been in.
He's that one guy who's been in everything.
He's that guy who's been in everything. So I'm going to be interested to talk to him about that, and definitely we're going to be bringing up Mr. Heckles because I have to. So
being a major Friends nerd.
exactly. So until next time, bye.
Later on, guys.